Now, we're still talking career education and public relations, and we're here with Ms. Paulina Kuranchie, a faculty member at the Ghana Institute of Journalism. Madam, to what extent does public relations go beyond just protecting the image of an organization?
Okay. So the import of public relations is to build mutually beneficial relationships between an organization and its publics. Now, these mutually beneficial relationships that we build could protect the image and the reputation of the organization, but it is also aimed at ensuring that the organization, for example, has peace of mind to operate in the area in which they operate.
Okay, so what link does public relations have with marketing?
Okay. Usually, when we talk about public relations, marketing and advertising, we put it all under integrated marketing communications. And whilst there are some similarities, there are also differences. So public relations is different from marketing in that, whereas public relations is looking at building mutually beneficial relationships, which may not necessarily be transactional. Usually, marketing is looking at transactional relationships. And by transactional relationships, I mean that in marketing, you are looking at, if I offer this product or service to this community, what do I get in return? But in public relations, usually we are looking at just building the relationships without really looking at what the organization may get in return. Yes, there are things that organizations get in return for doing good public relations. A good image, a good reputation, and so forth and so on, which could translate into
profit.
Yes, profits much later on. But that is not our main goal at the beginning of any public relations strategy.
Okay.
What we are looking at is trying to ensure that we build a mutually beneficial relationship. And for example, we are in this community and we decide that we will build a borehole for the community. It does not necessarily mean that the community benefits from something that AAU does immediately. So let's say that AAU holds lectures and we don't expect that students in the community will come to AAU and pay school fees. No. But we built the borehole for the community knowing that when the people in the community are at peace, we have legitimacy to do our business in peace.
You earlier submitted that public relations deals with the publics, and you mentioned the employees as one of the publics.
Yeah.
Now, when it comes to this, doesn't it overlap with human resources?
Yes, what HR does.
Yeah.
Yes and no. For example, in a lot of organizations, HR is supposed to take care of, say, internal communication.
Okay.
But we recommend, public relations practitioners recommend that HR should do that in conjunction with public relations, because if you're able to build good relationships with the people in the organizations, they become your mouthpiece. You don't need to do an advert. You get it? And because in PR we are looking at reputation building, brand building, and we're looking at just building relationships that benefits both the organization and the people they deal with. And HR is concerned with taking care of the human resource in the organization. We advise that they do it hand in hand. Again, there are, for example, CSR, corporate social responsibility activities that PR people undertake for staff, which HR may take over to do, but we ask that to do it together. For example, in how you treat your staff, for example, is corporate social responsibility. Usually when we talk about corporate social responsibility, people are thinking, oh, we want to do philanthropy in this community or that community. But even how you treat the staff in the organization is corporate social responsibility. So for example, in organizations where they have mothers with young children, the organization may decide that we will have a crèche in on the premise of the organization. And HR will think that, oh, when we do it, it will help the mothers stay at work because then their minds are not on their children back home. But it is a CSR activity, and CSR basically falls in the purview of public relations. So HR people and PR people will work hand in hand in the same way that we work hand in hand with all the other departments in the organization.
We will talk more details about that. But does one necessarily have to have a degree? And if it is so, does it have to be in public relations to be able to practice public relations?
I recommend that, yes, get a degree in public relations. In GIJ, where I teach, we have diploma programs in communication studies. And then we have a degree in communication studies with public relations specialization, and then we have a master's in public relations. The reason we recommend that you get training in public relations is that, just like accountancy, you can't get an accountant who is not trained to go and take care of the books of an organization. So why should PR be different? So get training in public relations. Again, public relations is a management function. On the management table, you need people who understand the issues, who understand the business of business, and who understand the business of PR and how this feeds into the growth and the expansion of the business to sit at the table. If you take anybody who is not trained in PR, they may not be able to see the signs and the signals, and they may not even be able to identify the stakeholders that you need to deal with in the organization.
So can somebody who has a degree but not in PR also become a public relations practitioner?
Why not? You can. You know the reason I say that, but you will need to get training in public relations. However you do it, it's up to you. For example, for me, my first degree is in physics.
Okay.
And then my master's is in public relations. So with any degree, you can do public relations, but you will need to get training in public relations, because public relations goes beyond the media relations that usually when we think about public relations, we think about. It is more strategic. You need to be able to understand the objectives of the business and where they are going, and to plan public relations campaigns and activities that tie into the objectives of the business to be able to build these mutually beneficial relationships that we're talking about.
Yeah. You mentioned that you can practice public relations with any other degree.
No, now, you can't practice public relations with any other degree. You can have any other degree, but you will need to get training in public relations.
So the training will come later.
Yes.
But for starters, you haven't got the training. You only have a degree, but not in public relations. So you can go ahead, or you need the training before you...
Yes, you need the training before you practice. We're talking about a professional. You see, usually when we talk public relations, people are thinking, oh, they are the people who speak to the media in times of crisis and so forth and so on. Now, the moment you reduce public relations to media relations, then anybody can do it. Anybody can stand in front of a camera and speak on behalf of an organization. But when you are thinking of PR as a management function, where you need to understand strategy to be able to practice, then any degree is not enough. You have to get a training.
So, not any degree. That's when somebody is holding, he or she will be able to practice public relations.
Professionally, no.
So if I have a degree in journalism, I will not be able to, without training, I will not be able to practice public relations.
In GIJ, for example, for our first and second years, our students do a bit of public relations and journalism, because it's a degree in communication studies. And then they specialize much later on. But if you're a journalist, you're a journalist. If you're a PR person, you're a PR person. It looks like, oh, it's the same thing. But let me tell you something. I teach at the master's level too. And at the master's level, what we see basically is that we see a lot of journalists. And in Ghana, when people think of public relations, they think of media relations. So organizations like to appoint journalists to speak on behalf of their organizations. Then when the people go in, they realize that, wow, this is very different from what we thought PR is. Because like I'm saying, it deals with a lot of strategy. It is not just, oh, I read a story and I sent it to this media house and it has been published. It goes beyond that. So how do you deal with the strategy? So what we find is that a lot of our students who get, journalism students who get appointments to do PR for organizations come back to school to learn public relations. And when they do, they realize that, wow, this is totally different from what we thought PR actually is.
So how is education in public relations theory and practice balanced?
Okay. What we try to do, at least in my faculty, is to balance theory and practice. We put it as 60-40. So they do 60% theory and then they do 40% practical. For me, for example, today, my students have been pitching. That is the practical side of what I teach them, the theory. So I teach you that this is how to put together a public relations plan. Then I tell you to come and pitch. And I brought industry practitioners to come and vet what the students are doing. So it gives them a practical feel. So let's say you are a public relations consultant, you are going to pitch for a job. How do you pitch it? So I teach you the theory, but you actually have to come and practice it for us to see. And we have industry practitioners who come in and judge these students so that they can improve on what they do. Some of my other colleagues also run public relations simulation companies for students. So you set up a company as a PR firm and then you provide a service for a certain target group. And like I'm saying, we bring in industry practitioners to come and see what these students are doing, whether or not the theory is marrying the practice or the theory is somewhere else and the practice is also somewhere else.
Now, are there opportunities for internships, coursework, and
yes,
such like?
Yes. The good thing about public relations is that every sector of the economy needs public relations. Those in the health sector need public relations. Governments, they need public relations. Think about it, technology, whichever area you are looking at, they need public relations. So we are able to place our students in organizations that have public relations departments. So they learn what it means when we talk about all of the theory. They go to the field to actually practice and see how it is like. So we place them in organizations to actually practice and see how it is like.
Okay, now let's talk about the career opportunities in public relations. What are they?
Numerous opportunities. In public relations, there are, like I said before, every organization needs PR. And usually organizations don't see it until they get into a crisis. But, and I mentioned the Midland Savings and Loans saga, for example. At the start, organizations would think, oh, we are into banking. Why do we need a public relations practitioner? But I believe strongly that if they had a PR person in the organization, the policeman would not even have beaten the woman the way he did. Because PR would have intervened. Why? PR would have intervened because sorry, what we do is try to build mutually beneficial relationships. So the woman comes in, the service is down. How did we speak to the woman? What did we do? You get it? Now, the moment we think that, oh, our business is finance, so we don't need PR, then somebody will manhandle the customer and then the whole business will be in trouble. And that's the point where organizations think, oh, we need a PR. But even before the crisis actually happens, you need somebody who is maintaining the relationships, who is building mutually beneficial relationships, so you don't get into trouble. So in every sector, for example, I run a consultancy, EPR. All we do is focus on tech startups. So we do public relations for tech startups alone. I have colleagues who do fashion PR. So all they do is focus on fashion brands and what PR activities they can do for them. I have colleagues who are into industry, manufacturing, and so forth and so on. There are others in hospital, there are others in NGOs.
So if I had a degree in public relations and I applied to your consultancy firm, what would I be doing there?
You will be providing public relations service for tech startups.
So what are these services?
Yes, sometimes they, for example, need awareness about their product or service. There is an app called Ankle Fitter. Have you heard about it before?
No.
How does anybody get to know about it if somebody does not create or raise awareness and give the brand visibility? So when you come in, you may be doing publicity, something to do with publicity. You may be doing something to do with community relations. You may be doing education, public education.
Okay.
There are various functions of public relations, and then the almighty and well-known media relations. So we are holding an event. We need to get media people there. How do we get them there? PR people help all of these things happen.
So how many PR people can an organization have at one time?
It depends on the size of the organization and what they do. I have been in organizations where there's a big PR department, and then I've been in organizations where there's a very small PR department. It all depends on what the organization does and what they think needs to be done or what PR needs to do in the organization.
So how many people can a small public relations department accommodate at a time? And how many can a big department also accommodate?
It will be difficult to put numbers to it. The reason I say is, for example, I worked in the Volta River Authority. There was a whole public relations department with somebody in charge of media relations, somebody in charge of publications, somebody in charge of events, somebody in charge of community relations, public education. So how many? Five roles. And all of these people had people under them working.
Okay.
Then I have been in organizations to where I am the PR department. Do you get it? So it will be difficult to put a figure to that an organization needs. So that organization needs a certain number of people to man the PR department. It depends on the size of the organization and what they want PR to do for them. There are firms, for example, who need PR to just hold events. That's it. There are firms who need PR to do only media relations. And sometimes too, depending on the size of the firm, PR is just one person. And that one person is supposed to do all of these other functions I have mentioned.
It must be a legwork then.
It's a lot of work. PR is hard work. It's hard work. People think that, oh, all PR people do is polish up and then walk around and pay solely. But it's a lot of work.
So how remunerative is it?
Depending on the level that you are in, it pays well. At least my students will tell you that it pays better than journalists are paid. Yes.
So talking about PR paying better than journalism, does that account for why many journalists are now moving into PR
Thank you very much. I keep telling my bosses in GIJ that we need to pay attention to the public relations faculty. Why? At the undergraduate level, when students are coming, because all they hear is Ghana Institute of Journalism, many of them apply for journalism. But when we come to the top-up, we have our diploma, and our diploma students, when they want to transition into the degree, they come and do the top-up, and then we get students from other areas. By the time they are coming into top-up, they have practiced journalism a bit, and they see that it's the PR people on the other side paying the solely. So we have a lot more classes in public relations at the top up level and even the master's level than we have journalism students.
Now they want to pay the solely.
Yes, they want to be on the other side. Yes, they want to be on the other side. And it's about the remuneration also. Journalists in Ghana are generally not paid well. I think it's one of the conversations they should have. But because of the solidity it gets to, I think they are fine.
So apart from the normal salaries, are there other perks, fringe benefits, and
for
such
PR
like,
people?
Yeah.
Oh yes, but again, it depends on the organization. It depends on the organization that you work for. I know organizations where you are paid really, really well because the business is doing well. And then again, if you're able to show value for what you do as a public relations person, then you'll be paid well. But the organizations where PR also, all PR does is prepare tea for meetings and organize buses for funerals and weddings. At that point,
protocol and all those things.
Why should they pay you well? But if you're able to show strategically what PR adds to the organization. And let me give you one example. I like to use this example. You know about the Airtel Touching Lives program?
Yeah, yes.
It was Airtel that did that program. What that program did was basically to use CSR to draw in sales.
Okay.
Because there were a lot of people who saw what Airtel was doing, and based on what they saw, they said, wow, this is a good brand, let's associate with them. So they may not necessarily have at the start been customers of Airtel, but because they saw the philanthropy the organization was doing, and philanthropy basically falls under CSR, and CSR is PR.
Okay.
It falls under the purview of public relations. So just based on that, they decided that they will have that transactional relationship with Airtel.
So how exciting is it to practice PR? What are the high points? And if there are some low points, what are they?
The high point is that you execute a campaign, for example, and it's exciting to see something that you thought play out in real life before you. And the low point are that it's a lot of work. And sometimes people disrespect you because you're a PR person, because they think that, and it stems from the fact that a lot of times people don't know what PR people actually do. And because they don't know, they think that, oh, is it not the people who organize buses and weddings and then they post notices around and share newspapers? So sometimes people can disrespect you because
they think it's
a work, yes, that anybody can do. And that is why I believe that we need to professionalize it. And more than professionalize it, PR people also need to show value for what they do. Because if I'm able to prevent a crisis based on what I do in building relationships, why should I be disrespected? Then when I speak, people will understand that, wow, this person knows what she's talking about.
So which categories of people would you recommend public relations to? Is it those who want 9-to-5 jobs because they want to ensure work-life balance? People who consider money, on top of any other thing, or people who cannot sit at a particular place for a long time?
The interesting thing is, it depends on where you are. So there are two worlds in public relations: in-house public relations and agency public relations. If you go into agency and you are somebody who is looking for a 9-to-5 job, it won't work for you. It's PR. But agencies usually work on behalf of organizations. You get it? And in agency work or in consulting, you are never off duty. So then if you were somebody looking for a 9-to-5 job and you thought that PR is it for you, it may not work. But if you are in-house, then, but even then, when there's a crisis, it doesn't matter the time, you'll be called to take care of things. So it's a lot of hard work. If you are not prepared for hard work, PR is not for you. And if all you are looking for is money, PR is not for you. The excitement, the joy, for me, is more than the money that you are paid.
I see. Okay, so let's take a quick break. We're back to continue with the discussion. Okay, viewers, we take a break here. We're still talking public relations, career guidance in public relations, and we're here with Ms. Paulina Kuranchie. We'll be back shortly.
What did you study?
Sorry.
What did
Come back. Now, Ms. Kuranchie, let's talk about skill sets. What skill set should one exude to be able to become a public relations practitioner?
The first one for me will be that you should be somebody who is curious, because you need to do a lot of research. And if you are not a curious person, research will be a bother. So the first one for me will be research. You need to develop your research skills. And then attention to detail. Attention to detail. You should be able to see beyond what is there. And then, more than anything, usually when we talk public relations, people are thinking, oh, they are the people who speak well and so forth and so on. But more than anything, you should be able to write well. Write very well. Because you are putting out press releases that the media will take and then pass on. If you cannot write well, nobody will take you seriously. So, and then you need to be able to develop your communication skills in total. So ability to speak well, ability to write well, ability to listen well. That one too is very, very important. In addition to all of the other soft skills that any job requires.
So how does one identify these skills, especially the soft ones that you didn't mention, even though it will be helpful if you...
So for the soft skills, we are talking about ability to work in a team, leadership, creativity, and so forth and so on. Those are the skills that we are talking about when we talk about the soft skills. So ability to work together in a team, ability to lead, ability to organize, creative thinking, and so forth and so on.
So if somebody wants to assess themselves and know if they'll be able to practice PR and become successful, how are they going to do? How would they know that, oh, okay, so I'm fit based on what you would say?
Yeah. So ask yourself, for example, do I have an eye for detail? There are people, for example, who will arrange these books, and they arrange it so nicely that anybody comes and they will comment on it. But there are people who will arrange these books and nobody will say anything. It's just books arranged. But there are some people who can arrange these books such that anybody comes and says, wow, who arranged these books? Those are the things that we're talking about. So attention to detail, ability to create, think outside the box. There are people who are able to give you ideas that you would never have thought about in 1,000 years. You get it? So those are the creative people that we are talking about. So for those people, then they know that, oh, I'm a creative person. We have come to a point, again, in the world where people have become more visual than anything else. So your ability to create something that people look at, see, and they get the whole communication at a glance is important. And that's what we mean by creativity.
Okay.
So you see an artwork communicating something, and immediately you know that this is what these people are trying to say. You don't have to overthink it or anything like that. It is simple, but it speaks a great message to whoever is listening or watching.
Looking at it. Okay. So once you've ID'd these skills, how do you hone them to become employable?
For me, one of the things I encourage my students to do is, if you love writing, for example, keep writing. Get your colleagues to look over what you write, and then keep a blog. Something as simple as keeping a blog, it makes a host of difference for us as public relations people. Because usually when you apply for a job, people want to see your writing. Just like the journalists go with their writing portfolio, in PR also, usually they will ask for your writing portfolio. So if you identify the skills, then hone it, practice it a lot more. For example, you are good at organizing events or organizing your colleagues, so you have leadership skills. Why don't you decide that, okay, so this event we are organizing in church, for example, I'll be the lead. I'd say, Pastor, the youth week that we organize every year, this year I want to be the lead in there, and then do it well for everybody to see that somebody thought a little bit more from what we have been doing previously. So practice it amongst your friends, write, share, and now with social media, there's so much that you can do. So you do it, and then you put it on your social media handles, share it with the rest of the world. They will come calling.
I see. So career development is a process.
Yes.
So where does that in public relations start, and where does it end?
When you see your skills, you hone it in, and then you get the practical training, and then you go back and practice. You get it. So you see the skills, you identify the skills, then you hone it. So you practice it from time to time amongst your friends, with your family, and so forth and so on. Then you get the training. So you come to school, and then you go and practice. So that the cycle continues.
Okay. So out of these things that you've mentioned, which one stands out?
Where we are now, I would say the training is very important. You see, all over the world, they understand public relations and what public relations seeks to do. But in our part of the world, people really do not understand what PR people do. So until you get good training in public relations, and you can stand boot for boot against your colleague who did accounting, nobody will take you seriously. It doesn't matter the skill sets that you have. You may need to get the training to be able to be taken seriously.
Okay, so I have assessed myself. I have known my skills, my strengths, what I can do, and all that. I want to start pursuing a career in public relations. How do I start it?
Look for an organization and intern with an organization that has a PR unit, and intern with them. Sometimes it looks glamorous from the other side, because usually for the PR people, you see them walking around and it looks like everything is happy-go-lucky for them. Until you actually practice, you may think that you have the skill, but when you are put to the test, that is when you see that, wow, this may not necessarily be for me. So if you identify the skills before you get the training, you may choose to intern with an organization that does public relations and see if that is where you really fit. Then you can move on to get the training and so forth and so on.
So at what age or what range of ages is it preferable that I start pursuing a career in public relations, and at what age would it have been too late for me to do so?
You can't be too early and you can't be too late. For me, for example, you know, I told you my first degree is in physics, but I remember that even as a child, I knew I wanted to do something in communications. And that children all around us that we see, you know, the children we say are talkative and so forth and so on. These are the communications children. The children who get into communications, but then we say, you like asking questions too much, keep quiet.
Yeah. It deflates them.
And then they become mute and we complain. As for you, you are not assertive at all. You don't ask questions. You get it? So for me, there's no time that is too early, and there's no time really that is too late.
Okay. So we are about to bring the show to an end. But before you go, I would want you to kindly say a few words to people who would want to practice PR, who would want to pursue a career in public relations, but they are caught up on the horns of a dilemma because they are not sure about certain things.
I'd say if you assess yourself and you believe that you have the skills such as creativity, attention to detail, writing skills, good communication skills that we have talked about, and you think you want to get into PR, go for it. Just go for it. Reason is that there's nothing as satisfying as doing something that you love, something that you know, this is what I want to do. You may take all of the winding parts, but if this is what you want to do, go for it. Steady. All over the world, and now there are people that you can look up to. Previously, there were not a lot of people that you could look up to because the recognition for what PR does was not that high up. But now there are people that you can go and say, Mom, or say, please mentor me in this area, and I'm sure you get the mentorship that you need. So if this is what you want to do, please go for it. Don't let anything hold you back, because there are real prospects in public relations. For example, I teach. I have colleagues who are in industry. I have colleagues who are in the service, the areas of service, and so forth and so on. So that's a wide range of opportunities when you study public relations. So go for it. Don't be afraid. I came from a background in physics and I'm doing this. What can you not do? You can do it.
Yeah. But one last thing, I didn't hear confidence. I learned from my public relations class that you have to be confident to pitch ideas to people, organizations and all that. And if you want to express disagreement or if you want to criticize somebody, you
need diplomacy.
No, you don't say, okay, I think that this is what it is. I think that, no, you have to go straight to the point and say with all the confidence. But
confidence for me without backing it with facts does not make sense. You get it? You should be able to communicate well. When we talk about your ability to communicate well, what do we mean? You communicate with facts and figures. And when you communicate well, you do it with confidence. You get my point. So I'm not coming to tell you that I think PR is a good course to study. I am telling you that PR is a good course to study. Why? I know from what all of my friends and colleagues in PR are doing, and I can tell you for a fact that PR is a good course to go and study. So if you are even confident and you do not have the facts and figures, you may do a poor job of communicating it. You get it? Yeah. But if you are a good communicator, you may even have poor facts, but still you'll be able to communicate it and convince.
So you have all the facts.
Exactly.
You can communicate it well to people. Now, polite communication demands that when you are disagreeing with somebody who is older than you, way older than you, you say, okay, so I could be wrong, but I think that, I mean, to mitigate the effect of the criticism or the disagreement. But how do you do so when you are practicing public relations?
For me, truth is truth. We don't have to color truth. And in business, it's business we are talking about. That is not where we are going to defer to people because they are adults. This is the facts. If we do this public relations campaign, this is what we intend to gain for the organization. Why should we go and say that? I think that it's one of the things that limits us, especially for young people and women. assertiveness in the workplace. If I have the facts, I am not disrespecting you, but say these are the facts, and it is proven that if you do A, B, C, D, you get E, F, G, H. Why should we go and sugarcoat it?
You skirt it.
No, I think that
go
straight to the point. Make your point firmly, but in a polite manner. Polite does not mean add please, necessarily. Polite does not, otherwise they camping people, they say that they are very polite. You know why? Because they say everything they say, they add please. But they may be insulting you and would have added please. But just make your point. And know what you are talking about. Go straight to the point. Get it done.
Thank you, Ms. Paulina Kuranchie, for your time.
Thank you.
I'm very grateful. Viewers, this is all we can give you. This what time will allow us to give you. We are very grateful for tuning in, and we hope you do so next week. Until then, bye-bye.